Fair warning beforehand, this whole video will contain spoilers for Game of Thrones Season 1 through 8. So if you haven't watched any of it, or you're not up to speed yet, don't watch this. If everything is unexpected, nothing is. We've all heard it after we were critical of certain decisions in Game of Thrones. You just don't like that things did not go your way. Didn't you know the show is all about subverting your expectations? But that's not true, is it? When Ned lost his head, we all screamed and shouted, but we understood why it happened. We were not happy back then, but we weren't critical of the decision in writing, mostly because it was based on George R.R. Martin's writing, who does understand how to subvert expectations and still keep a story coherent and sensical. So what is good subversion of expectations? What is bad subversion? Let's dive a little deeper. There are many surprising moments one can choose from after Season 5, the season where D&D were mostly on their own and had no original source material to work with anymore. Let's start with episode 4 of Season 7, The Spoils of War. This episode has a couple of moments that shows that the showrunners D&D know how to write in George's spirit, but it also shows they do not know how to properly subvert your expectations. After Highgarden fell to Jaime and his army, Bronn and him march back to King's Landing, only to be attacked by Daenerys and her Dothraki and dragons. What happens next is how George R.R. Martin would have certainly wrote this battle. The Lannister army is in disarray, shocked, traumatized by being either burned alive by what is essentially a jet fighter to them, or being run down by the infamous and fearless Dothraki. D&D showed they went through the source material, going as far back as one of King Robert's speeches, where he laid out one should never fight Dothraki in an open field. This episode showed us why. The episode is pure horror, making us cheer for Dany, but shows us pure destruction that makes us question why we are cheering for all of this again. At some point, two things happen that could have been proper subversions of expectations, but both failed to properly deliver. Bronn decides to play the hero, and he climbs onto the new Scorpion, the crossbow type weapon that was invented to kill off dragons. One subversion of expectations could have happened right here. Bronn the Sellsword plays the hero. Normally that means death in the universe of Game of Thrones. As much as I love the Sellsword, he acted outside of his usual character, and that usually means death. It would have been a painful, unexpected but logical and tragic end for the Sellsword, who managed to survive by being as selfish as possible, but died because he decided to be truly heroic for once. But of course, he managed to survive because he's a popular character. And that is where another failure to deliver by D&D happens. As Dany tries to save her dragon by pulling out the spear that is sticking out of him, Jaime charges at her, wanting to prevent a second burning of King's Landing. Again, Jaime could have died here because he played the hero, but not necessarily by dragonfire. There's a much more in-universe explanation that could have been better. When he was tackled by Bronn and sank in the water, he could have drowned then and there. There is precedent in the universe of dialogue mentioning how some knights died by wearing too heavy armor. I believe this happened during the Battle of Blackwater as well. They sink to the ocean as they fall into the water because their armor is too freaking heavy. Personally, I wanted Jaime to stay alive, that's not the point for some later plot with Cersei, but the way the story went during the episode, it would have been a proper subversion if they killed him then and there. It almost felt like they were setting it up, and then all of a sudden he survives. I guess your expectations were subverted once more. Now let's go to episode 3 of season 8, The Long Night, the one we were all waiting for. Two things happen here that subvert expectations per D&D standards, but not by proper George R.R. Martin standards. The Dothraki are sacrificed for a nice visual with all their burning swords or araks going dark into the night, but nothing more. It's shocking to see all of the Dothraki disappear out of existence. Shocking, subversive, you didn't see that coming, did you? Actually, every viewer who paid proper attention for 8 seasons saw it coming from a mile away. The Dothraki are in a strange climate, do not see their enemy, and we know the enemy doesn't flinch, doesn't care about dying. We know they have all sorts of weird creatures at their sides, and we know their numbers are enormous. It showed, as one YouTube channel pointed out, that D&D are more interested in serving the drunk viewership at the bar than to try and deliver something that will be talked about positively for years to come. The second subversion in this episode is that Arya and Stark kills the Night King, and not Jon or Dany or whoever else. Now this is an interesting one, because some people had a knee-jerk reaction and saw this as a Mary Sue moment. Now I wouldn't doubt that D&D want to jump onto the bandwagon of girl power, I wouldn't say Arya Stark is necessarily a Mary Sue, because he did go through a story arc where she was trained as an assassin who only knows death. Before that, she had a complete story arc where she only saw death and destruction and lost every loved one she ever had. She had a story arc. The seeds were there to intertwine her arc with the Night King, but there was nothing of the sort in previous seasons. Only some retconning with the blue icy which shut, as foretold by Melisandre. If D&D would not have butchered the storyline from season 5 onwards, proper foreshadowing could have led to a satisfying kill for Arya on the Night King. I do want to say if one would go that way, because there are many problems here in episode 3. For one, the Night King after 8 seasons of suspense is gone without any new background, motivations, and with him the Long Night and all of the death that come with it. The storyline is gone. The whole idea of the series where the battle for the throne is supposed to be irrelevant and slowly depleting the chances of survival of humanity is gone. Do you feel subverted yet? Or cheated? As one commenter on Reddit said, they defeated Satan and we are supposed to care who was elected president afterwards. Proper subversion would have been if the Night King did not want to kill Bran and instead started to talk. What if the Night King never went to Winterfell but he went straight to King's Landing? There's so many more options for story arcs that will remain open and would bring sense to the story. What would the Faceless Man think of this? Why weren't they involved in the story anymore, since they basically worshipped that? Wouldn't they be on the side of the Walkers? None of that. Your expectations are subverted, so do not ask for more proper storytelling, please. In episode 4, The Last of the Starks, we get to one final failed subversion we will discuss. When Dany travels back to Dragonstone with her fleet, Euron ambushes her and eviscerates Rhaegal by hitting him twice in a row with what seems to be upgraded scorpions. Scorpions with pinpoint accuracy, scorpions that need no reloading, and scorpions that magically miss when they are all perfectly locked onto Daenerys when she rushes towards them. Vast number of ships that outnumber Dany, but somehow she cannot see them up high in the sky. And it's not like it's been mentioned before in previous episodes that Euron has a huge fleet and is a danger. Somehow she did not send scouts ahead, somehow Euron does not chase them after their entire fleet seems to be destroyed, and somehow Dany kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet. D&D felt like they should kill a dragon because oh my god, so unexpected. But what was the point here story-wise? She's outnumbered now. How did Dany still allow parley with Cersei, seeing as one of her children basically was one shot out of existence? Oh, remember the Dothraki by the way? I believe in dialogue it is said that half of the Dothraki survived, while D&D said in interviews that episode 3 was the end for them. They've given up on consistency, narrational coherency, past in-universe precedent, and being in touch with the goddamn source material. In short, the 3 examples I gave you show that if every great moment is unexpected, none of them are. It also shows that subversion in and of itself is not of any value to a good story. George R.R. Martin knows this. He subverted the image of the gallant knight in order to tell a sensible, coherent story that grabs you and makes you root for monsters. He subverts the image of the honorable man trumping over opportunists and schemers because it tells a sensible, coherent story that makes you question what is good and what is evil. Now let us look at 2 great moments that exactly describe what I just said from the earlier seasons, and thus from the books, to prove this point. First, let's go to the Red Wedding in season 3. I know, it's painful to go back, but let's do it. Episode 9, The Reigns of Castamere. It was one of the most subversive moments in TV history. Robb Stark is betrayed by the Freys and dies with most of his host, including his mother and his wife and child, effectively wiping out the Stark Uprising storyline. But what made this subversion so much better than say killing Rhaegal in one shot or the Night King getting one shot? First of all, it was properly set up and foreshadowed. Catelyn and Robb make fatal mistakes beforehand. Catelyn by letting Jaime Lannister go in order to trade for her daughters, and Robb by betraying the marriage pact with House Frey. The first leads to Robb losing half his army after he beheads Rickard Karstark, and the last leads to House Frey ultimately betraying them during the Red Wedding. Secondly, all of this served the narrative, was consistent with the story and pushed it forward. Robb was not going to win this war. Looking back, we all knew this, but we wanted him to win anyway. He was a brilliant strategist, but a young, easily manipulated boy. As he said himself, I'm winning every battle, but I'm losing this war. His tragedy was that he was too much a son of his father, letting his honor get in the way of the bigger picture. Their deaths meant one less player in the War of the Five Kings. It meant the North Would Remember storyline should kick in. Of course it didn't, because D&D did their own thing. But whatever, it should have. And House Frey would be distrusted forever, since guest right was something to be taken seriously in Westerosi custom. The Red Wedding wasn't just subversive, it had meaning. Now let's go to the opposite players of the spectrum and look at another proper subversion with narrative context. Jaime Lannister always has been a controversial character. He pushed a small boy out of a window because of his incestuous love for his sister. He strangled his own cousin in order to escape Robb's captivity, and he raped Cersei in front of their own dead son. But for all of his horrendous deeds, many of us love his character. Why would that be? For one, his whole character is a subversion of the gallant knight. As we look at him in season 1, we look at the knight from Shrek. As the seasons go on, the knight in shining armor coming to save the maiden from the dragon is properly subverted and showing us that many knights do not care about nobility or honor, but only about themselves. Yet at some point we'll learn more about him. We'll learn that his publicly most dishonorable deed, stabbing the king he swore to protect in the back, was one of his most honorable deeds. And we witness a true subversion of expectations. Where we would expect him to wither and die in season 3 or escape and become an asshole again, he loses his sword hand in season 3 episode 3 Walk of Punishment. He loses all sense of identity, the one skill he was the best at, being a great sword fighter. At first he simply wants to die, but then he meets Brienne of Tarth, his complete opposite in every way. Brienne is the ideal of the gallant knight, or she at least tries to live up to it. He finds another part of him, long lost, the honorable Sir Jaime that once became a knight for the same reasons as Brienne did. Jaime losing his hand was subversive, but more importantly it was one of the most defining moments in the series for a character. It pushed the story and his story forward, made coherent sense and wasn't just shock for shock value. It completely transformed Jaime and set him on a redemption arc. Of course, we could discuss how D&D seemed to forget this detail as well in later seasons, especially season 5 and onwards, but the seeds were there, and I'm pretty sure that George will go onwards with this storyline in the books. Once more, let me repeat what makes subversion of expectations so powerful in storytelling. It is powerful because you did not expect the story to progress this way, or because you misinterpreted the seeds sown beforehand to progress the story the way it did. But that's the point. The story progresses forward in some way. The subversion has meaning in the universe somehow. The subversion doesn't just shock, it makes you think. The Red Wedding was one such moment, as was Jaime losing his sword hand. Arya killing the Night King was not, and neither was Rhaegal dying by Euron Sparrow's magical scorpion. D&D tried too hard to be George, without the actual cleverness behind all of it. They should have stuck to 10 episodes per season, not focus on their big budget so much, and instead focus on the narrative being in touch with the actual source material. Instead we got impressive visuals, a story that tells you not to think so much, and just enjoy the ride. Don't be so negative. That is the complete opposite of how Game of Thrones started, both in the books and the series. Every episode made you think somehow, and when you gasped during subversive moments, you thought even more. And when you did, things made sense, even if they hurt. If you try to think right now after every subversive moment in season 8, and if I'm being honest, season 5 to 8, you just get pissed because nothing seems to make any sense or matter at all. Such a shame. If anything, I think more people will be drawn to the books now, and that's probably the best thing that came out of it. Oh well, it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed this little rant. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, blah de blah, all that things, click the bell, whatever. Yeah, it's been a while since I made a video, so maybe it will be a while before I make another one. But maybe I'll go consistent and make some videos in the future, we'll see. My name was Paper Sharps, and I'll see you next time.